Okay, hi students. So what we're going to talk about today is working with raster-based images. Now, Adobe Illustrator generally creates what's called a vector-based image. A raster-based image is the kind of image that you would use in Photoshop, and they are two completely different image types for completely different purposes. Okay, both of these images here are raster type images, okay, and they are made up of little pixels, and they are, if you get closer and closer to them, they get fuzzier and fuzzier, if you will. Okay, the image quality degrades. However, many other things on the web, such as type and so forth, are vector graphics. They are actually created either in Illustrator, or they're a font that was drawn, and it's a certain font type. And so if you notice that if I increase the size of my screen like this, watch what happens to the text. Okay, it just gets bigger and bigger, and it gets just as sharp with every single thing that I do. Okay, so let's go back and let's make the type smaller so we can see our presentation again. Okay, almost there. So we're really zooming in on that text. Okay, whoops, went one too far. There we go. Couple too far. Okay, there we go. All right, I think we got it. Okay. All right, so you can use vector images inside of Photoshop. You can use them inside Illustrator and back and forth, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the image quality that you get from Illustrator will necessarily be in Photoshop and vice versa. Okay, so one thing that you can do is you can trace. Okay, that's a pretty important thing when we're talking about adapting images from Photoshop or from some other source, such as a bitmap graphic that you can put into Adobe Illustrator and create an image from. Okay, so let's go ahead and scroll down here, and we have our picture of the girl in the waterfall. Okay, and you can see that with this kind of posterized effect, you can trace a graphic. Okay, and so this is the sort of thing that you can end up with. You can trace logos and so forth. However, I want to caution you. When you trace things in Adobe Illustrator, especially logos, it's sometimes faster to simply redraw the logo if you have to. Sometimes from a client you'll get a version of their logo that is less than sharp because it's, they're just handing you what came off the website or something. And that's usually not a sharp graphic. It's 72 pixels per inch. Its resolution isn't great, and it certainly isn't a vector graphic. And so you, as an artist, have to create a graphic that is. Okay, so tracing becomes important. However, tracing adds a lot of points. Okay, and then you have to clean up your trace quite a bit. And you may find that with this week's assignment. Okay, so you can place images in Illustrator. Okay, so such as a bitmap graphic like a TIFF, a JPEG, and so forth. Okay, and you would choose File, Place to do that. Okay, there's also linking and embedding, and for the rest of the course, unless the instructions tell you to specifically link a file, I want you to embed it. Okay, that way I can see what you are actually turning in for your homework. And if you've linked the file but I don't have access to the original source where that file linked from, then I can't see it. Okay, that's going to be really important as you do your redesign project to end the course. Okay, and so I think I just explained when to use which, but to recap, if you anticipate having to swap out a graphic and there aren't going to be many changes, but let's say you have a picture of a woman in a red dress and instead you might want to embed an image of the same woman in a green dress, you can link the file and then just easily unlink and it won't change your artwork. Okay, but embedding is also really, really important because embedding means that it stays along with your Illustrator project. Okay? Okay. So you can update links. You can link to a different graphic, like I mentioned. Okay, and also you can make changes to a link graphic. All right, so that's one of the nice things. Let's say that you've linked a graphic and you save it under the same file name. Well, you can change that original graphic, let's say somewhere like in Photoshop, and you can just link it and Adobe Illustrator will automatically pick that up and use that changed version. Okay, file management on this can be kind of important, so keep that in mind. And also realize that when you make changes to a graphic and you rename them the same name, you better be darn sure that that's what you intended to do. Okay? All right. Okay, so when you trace an image, it takes a lot of processing resources. Okay? And you may have to go back and forth to see what best result there is. It is possible to do a tremendous amount of powerful tracing. And with a graphic like this, with the woman in the red dress, that might be just fine because you're not looking for a tremendous amount of precision. However, with things like logos, text, letters, things where people pick up people, their eyes pick up if something's wrong. Okay, if the proportions of a letter are wrong, then people pick that up. Or if you have a logo that has two S's in it, for example, or two P's, and one P looks different than the other, and they're not supposed to, people pick up on that. So you need to be pretty careful. Okay. Let's go on to here. You can expand a trace, okay, and that's kind of important. Expanding discards the original placed object, okay, and in that way you're kind of saying, okay, this is exactly what I want, and I'm moving forward with what I want to trace, okay. And one of the nice things about Illustrator and its tracing capability is that it allows you to trace an object and it generally keeps the original and the trace, and you can go back and forth as you need to. Okay, so it's kind of like it becomes like a layer of its own, or an alpha channel like in Photoshop. Okay, but really it's just part of the trace. Okay. All right. So this is what I was talking about image trace. Here we see an image with lots and lots of points all over the graphic of the woman in the red dress. Okay, now maybe you can easily change the red dress. That's great. But imagine if this was a logo with a certain font in it. Well, you could see editing all these points to make it look right could be quite difficult. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and skip Live Paint. Okay, because personally I think that you got your hands full with tracing this week. So best of luck, and let me know if you have any questions, okay?